It's pretty bizarre. You hear these old words, these old references to technologies that seem pretty modern, yeah, at least in the 60s. There were various benchmarks which societies would wish to reach. Let's say you were Babylonian, let's say you were Assyrian or Assyrian or Sumerian or French, a Gaul, a Teuton. It really wouldn't matter. Your civilization not only had to meet the expectations and academic prowess of other countries, but also empires. And though it's hard to find these days on Google, in old encyclopedias, there was quite a lot of references to olden day mathematics and the creation of electronic processes and theories. Interestingly, I made reference to an Aryan um, device, a transistor. And interestingly, that same component and design was used uh, in some way to create MIDI. And the reason is the design of the Aryan component was zero latency. Other transistors utilized a style of of impedance so as to time the frequency, so as to be able to make it possible to time something, like for a radio wave or for a harmonic. And it was something that monks were paid millions of dollars to do back in the day, back in the Dark Ages. They'd sit inside of an old castle or something, and that's all they do all day is test impedancy utilizing really old stuff, and they'd make an exotic transistor. But in this in this application, um, the the simpler Aryan transistor would be perfect because that's what made MIDI so fast. Before the advent of the PC keyboard came the MIDI keyboard, and it is based upon one signal, one signal that goes from the keyboard, right, and then to a controller. And inside is that ancient technology. And we're going way back. We're going all the way back to uh, the Javanese. I don't know if you've heard the Javanese. I've heard arguably they were some of the first prominent Aryans. Whilst they were uh, becoming part of the Asian Empire, the Javanese were trying to meet expectations and ensure that their people could do everything that everyone else could. Thankfully, they provided their brilliant transistor design. Isn't that weird? Like 10,000 years ago, they come up with this stuff. But back then, I guess they dreamed up a lot of ideas. Now, another interesting thing that people might not realize is that in Europe, there's still plenty of old technologies made in the Dark Age or even BC, electronics that still work to this day. They're not as robust as what we'll make today, but usually they provide some small function, like if you step on a rubber pad, it dings, right? Or if you open a door, it dings. Or I remember seeing an old one, uh, and somebody was telling me about it. And they said when a boat goes by, its optical sensor knows, and it makes a ding, so that the border patrol guard can speak to the person before it moves on towards the locks. It wasn't so much of a matter that electricity wasn't required. It was just a matter of application. We weren't considering the vast array of things that electricity could do. We were just merely considering one function, one use, and one application. It did exist, but just in a very confined, structured way. I often think to myself that it almost seems like we're redesigning science. And when we think of these great ideas, imagine living in terrible times, full of war and with people who didn't like one another whatsoever. There would have been so many scientists, so many people who wanted something really good to happen, and that really great thing was never in sight. This is Robert from DSP Plot.